Hello, and welcome to another edition of Fishing for Answers. Today, I am here with Kevin Gowen. He is the CISO. Did I pronounce that right?
You did?
All right. He is the CISO over at Synovus Bank, and he's actually been there almost 30 years. So I'm really excited to learn from all of his wealth of experience in the financial sector and cybersecurity. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me. I'm
Thank you.
happy to be here. I tell people I've been somewhere for 30 years, and it's kind of like people look at you like a dinosaur, right? The world has changed a lot. But I've had a great opportunity here. I started out here. Actually worked at IBM before I came to Synovus. And when I came to Synovus, I worked in IT. I did that for about the first 13 or so years of my career. Then I moved into more of a risk management. I ran our third-party risk organization. Our procurement organization was doing that. And then almost a decade ago, the CISO job opened up. And about 18 hours after it became open, our COO called me in and said, "I want you to be the new CISO." I had this dumb look on my face, like, "How did you come up with that idea?" And he connected the dots between a technology background, process knowledge and focus, risk management experience. I like to tell people I've had multiple different careers. Never had to leave the company to do it. It's kind of the best of both worlds.
Well, that's awesome. And thank you for joining us today to talk about the human element of cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, 30 years, you just sort of got shoved into security. What have you done since? 10 years. It's a long
Yeah,
time.
yeah. At first it was, well, it's always interesting, right? You know that we're all in the same space. It's been the most fun job I've had, for sure. It's been the most interesting, challenging. If you want to be in a position where you can see the impact you're having on the organization, be able to draw a clear line between what you and your team do and how you're helping protect the organization and manage risk. I mean, we're in the jobs that allow us to do that, right? So that's what makes it
We
really
absolutely
interesting
are.
and fun. It gives me a great opportunity to think about how does a board look at cyber and cyber risk? How do other lines of business executives look at it? So it's fun, it's interesting, it's challenging, and I realized there was a lot more in my background that really aligned with it. Because I
Yeah.
think you've probably seen it when you talk to your many guests that the traditional. I went up through the ranks. I was an administrator. I was a security engineer. I was a this, a that kind of really straight vertical path. You just don't see that all the time anymore, like we
Yeah.
probably used to, right? So having some of that diversity of background, I think, has helped make me a little bit more effective in the role.
Oh, I would agree 100%. I think too many people try to skip some of the basics. And while that can work, I think that you're just so much more well rounded when you have come up through the ranks. Now, I'm always fascinated by particularly stories like yours where you've come up through the ranks, you've been with the same organization for 30 years. So I imagine you thought very differently 30 years ago when you started than you do now. Are there any things, particularly when it comes to like culture and security awareness or just cybersecurity in general, that really stand out to you about how your mindset's changed?
Yeah. So there's a few things. Probably the most obvious one, and it ties directly to what you focus on, is for all the risk we still see in people, and I know we'll circle back around to that discussion as we go through today. Um, the level of understanding and awareness that people generally have is so much higher than it was, right? It used to be when you would do phishing exercises or just talk about patching vulnerabilities, it was all viewed as like a burden, right? Why are we doing this stuff? Do we really have to do this? Why do you do phishing exercises? This is a waste of my time, right? Why do you want to tag incoming emails to highlight them that they came from the outside just to make me more aware I should look at it? Because that's just a pain in the neck, right? And the days of hearing those kind of complaints are really behind us. And I think that's the biggest thing. So people, they still need to get better at practicing things to protect themselves in the org. But I think the understanding of why it's important is so much higher. I think that really stands out.
Okay.
The connection between cyber security, what we do, and lines of business, I think, is much more clearly seen and understood than it was, decades ago, for sure. Right?
Well,
People
we
recognize.
barely had cybersecurity decades
Yeah,
ago.
it was maybe a person in the IT department, and then it became a department in the IT department. But now I think now lots of business people understand that it's a significant risk to them, and it's also an enabler.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And to be able to, you don't go advertising, hey, we're really secure, right? That's like putting a big target on you. But so that people can feel comfortable when they're out selling products and services that, we do the right things and we understand it's important to us, and have confidence that we're going to try to protect your information and our systems, and ultimately your network and our relationships. So
Yeah. Unfortunately, I have to go out and brag about how secure we are. But I appreciate the sentiment. Well, I mean, you do too, a little bit, because you're a bank. I mean, bragging about how secure you are is part of how you make your customers feel comfortable. So,
yeah,
but it is a double-edged sword, because by doing that, you quite literally put a target on your back. We started an ad campaign on Facebook the other day, and it's just, hey, stop fish clicks. And immediately we started getting phishing attacks to our company
yeah.
Facebook Messenger profile, like, immediately. And I'm like, okay, so this ad makes you think I'm going to fish them. And I'm like, of course it does. Of course it
Yeah,
does.
yeah. When whatever puts your name out there or puts your brand out there, it's going to drive, unfortunately,
Yeah.
people to try to test you out a little bit. So you have to find the balance between reassuring people that you have really sound security practices and it's important, and not like overreaching for, hey, we're really good, because that's just inviting people to come and challenge you, for sure.
I agree. So it's Security Awareness Month. And
Yeah,
apparently none of my graphics are working today. Do you see a graphic there? No?
I do not.
I didn't think so. Okay, so my graphics aren't working. We'll just go back here where the graphics are working. But it's Security Awareness Month.
Yeah.
What are you doing to celebrate? What are you doing over and above what you would normally do anyway?
Yeah. So we've had a number of different events, typically have kind of the theme or the thing going on of the week. We've been doing a lot of outreach stuff. So we've done some contest things, kind of a big fish contest, right? To give people a chance to compete,
Like
to
a
see if,
fishing tournament?
yeah, like a fishing tournament. Exactly. Yeah. So we've got given people a chance to do that. We're doing obviously some social media kinds of things on behalf of the company, just promoting security awareness. Um, we just did a discussion, a podcast, an internal kind of podcast on social engineering risks.
Yeah.
So we had some of our team members kind of educating, informing, and we had a lot of participation from across the company. So we've been doing different things like that, along with the normal cadence we do of internal communications, sharing. We contract and white label some more consumer-oriented content that we share with our team members. So we figure if we help improve your cyber hygiene and practices in your personal life, you'll carry those things with you to work.
Yeah.
We
Well, and
continue
I
a lot
think,
of those things, and then add a few new ones just for the month of October.
yeah, no, I like that. I think it makes it more personal too,
It does.
when, it hits home why they need to care a little bit more when they hear that story about the person whose entire mortgage went off to the wrong place because
Yep.
their realtor's email was hacked, or,
Yep.
whoever got hacked in that process. It only takes one. That's the weak link that causes those things to break down.
That's it.
So one of the things I like to do is keep training as fun as possible. Now, I want to play a quick song that we made for Security Awareness Month. What do you think?
Sure. Let's
All
do it.
right. All right. And then I want to hear what you're doing, or what your thoughts are on how to keep it fun. But here we go. It's called Hey, I'm Your CFO.
CFO, no time to ask, just wire $5 million. It's a simple task. Oh, and by the way, I need a jet by noon and a diamond Rolex to match my tune. It's CFO, send that dough. I need $1 trillion and a golden chateau. Trust my voice, I'm legit, don't doubt. Now send the cash before I freak out. This be your CFO, it's urgent, bro. And don't forget the ruby.
That's great.
I love that. That's great.
In a private island fast. I'm in a
Oh, it just keeps on going, but no, I mean, so we try to do things like that just to keep it fun and just, I mean, some of there is a little bit of humor in some of these things, and being able to point that out and just, make absurd things like, hey, I want that gold yacht or whatever it was.
Needed a jet and a Rolex. I caught that.
Yes.
I missed the yacht, I think. But
there was a ruby briefcase too in there. A ruby briefcase. Yes.
That's a nice touch.
Yes.
Those CFOs, that's how they roll, I guess.
Oh, we've got a whole series. There's one that's I'm your IT guy. There's another one that's hey, I'm your CEO, and there's another one. The one you'd appreciate. I swear I'm your bank. Actually, I can play that if you want.
I swear I'm your bank.
Let me see. Do I have that? I think it was this one. I hope. Let me see. Trying to do this on the fly.
Hey, it's me, your bank, and I've got bad news. Your account's in trouble, time to pay your dues. A pirate ship stolen all your cash, so send me your info, let's move real fast. I'm totally your bank, give me your PIN. Your account's been hacked by a ninja within. I swear it's real.
Oh my gosh. That hits so close to home because besides having the InfoSec responsibility, I also have the fraud responsibility for the bank.
Okay.
So I kind of get both sides of it, right? Because we got the customer piece of you guys called me. No, that honest, it was not us. I swear to you. We know when we call, but we know when we don't. It wasn't us. Yeah, that's good.
So just, I do think that making training just more engaging in general is really critical. I don't know. You must have learned a few tricks over the years. Any thoughts on that subject?
Yeah, I think everybody struggles a little bit with how do you make it fun? How do you make it engaging, maybe? So it might be engaging, not necessarily fun. I think we made a lot of progress on the engagement piece. We've moved from the annual take the course where it's a series of PowerPoints and blah 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 to things that are more interactive, smaller chunks, targeted messaging as opposed to a very broad brush over a whole bunch of stuff. So that's a part of it. We've also gone to where we do more targeted specific things for people in different roles, which I know aligns with your approach and your platform's approach. So we can, topic like social engineering, I think is a great example that, we developed some social engineering specific stuff with some examples and real things in them that we can deliver to targeted audiences that represent the greatest risk. So executive assistants is a great example, right? The people that support and are the front door for the company's highest value targets. So that's a piece of what we've done. I mentioned some of the content we share twice a month that's more approachable, more kind of consumerish rather than internal corporate-like. It takes a different tack on how to get the message across. And then just generally try to do a lot of different things and do them often so that it's not like, here's your training course and you click the box and then you're done for the year, right? So it's kind of constant reinforcement. I think that's what keeps people a little more engaged.
Yeah.
But we're like everybody else trying to break the code on how can I help train Joshua on the things that are going to matter to Joshua and Kevin on the things that matter to Kevin and do it in a timely way and thorough enough that you're getting the pieces you need and keep it interesting. Because then you're going to continue to engage with it when the next one comes up.
So my one of my VPs of operations is always going around quoting this study that found that when you make training contextual to that person's role, that it increases the effectiveness by 15x. Just because it's tailored to them, the user just pays more attention, and so I do think that's really critical. And it's not just that. I mean, I got to imagine that you're seeing what can only be described as AI generated attacks that are contextual. They know the person's department, they know the organizational hierarchy and structure, and all of that means AI is being used against us. So we better figure out how to use it to make our people more secure too.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a great point. I think we all take for granted how easy it is to use technology against us and to take the wealth of information about every one of us that's available and construct really, really specific, targeted, credible attacks. I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg with deepfake stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we had somebody construct the deepfake of our chairman and CEO and reach out to someone inside the org to try to get them to they didn't want a Ruby briefcase or a jet, but it was like $1 million because he was going to be the guy to help with this super secret activity about an acquisition. Unfortunately, the person who got it was very savvy and knew what it was and sent it to us. So, but that's just one of many. And I know all of us are seeing those kind of things. It's a little scary.
Yesterday I talked to somebody and they did private equity, and they had I don't know that they were necessarily cyber criminals, but some con artists that created all of the paperwork, a full data warehouse with every bit of the financials, employment contracts, everything you could possibly imagine. Their analysts poured over it and decided to move them forward in the process. And fortunately, their final portion or step was to go and do an in-person, which is when they went silent. Well, when these people ghosted them, they started looking into it, and they discovered this company doesn't exist. But the level of sophistication, I mean, thousands of pages of high finance documents forged to be able to do that. I mean, that's some serious know-how. I mean, I've been through this personally. It's not like it's just easy stuff. I mean, it's very complex, and I even sometimes need my lawyers to help me understand this stuff, right? So I'm just impressed at the level of sophistication. So that really doesn't surprise me at all. And I mean, there was the successful one over in Hong Kong where you heard about that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And we use that example often. We're using that in the social engineering and discussion we have with team members because I think people, unless they're close to it like we are, can't grasp just the level of sophistication of the people we're dealing with. This is a big business. People that make a lot of money. They have their own R&D departments, right? We're competing against really sophisticated people.
Well, and another guest pointed out the other day that, and I thought it was a great point, that they have the level of revenue of a CrowdStrike with margins that are just massive. Just we don't even know how big their margins are, but we know they're not spending what CrowdStrike does to make it. And that's scary because, we do have, now it's not just the nation states that are after us. It's not just the, the organized crime, or I guess it is, but that organized criminal element has gotten so big, so well funded, and they have so many resources that it's very much a difficult thing to keep up with them. And I mean, I'll give you the example in my company. Everyone is racing to get generative AI into their products. Ours is built mostly on machine learning. Now, we have a lot of different generative AI models that we've trained for different tasks, and most everything still has a human in the loop because we still don't have the level of, just reliability that we want.
Yeah.
Now, somebody like you and I, we're going to worry about that, and we're going to worry about the customer experience, and we're going to worry about things. But the bad guys, they don't care if it goes, if it goes haywire once in a while, because it doesn't matter to them. It's a numbers game.
Yep. Yep. And they're not worried about fitting their corporate standards. They're not worried about the compliance risk associated with how you deploy AI in your organization, right? You're right. It's just, we'll try it. There's very little downside risk, unfortunately.
Yeah.
To the attack.
And it's becoming far too easy to jailbreak these models too. I think that's another part that, but I agree. I mean, to your earlier point, people just don't really realize the complexity and the sophistication of just what their capabilities are right now. I mean, AI has changed everything. And I actually think that's a really great segue. AI has changed everything in just the course of a little over a year. So what do you think are the biggest threats that AI brings from a cybersecurity perspective? And the follow-up to that would be, what do we need to be educating our people about when it comes to AI? What do we tell them?
Yeah. So on the kind of risk and threat side, part of it I think is AI and other technologies allow attackers to move more quickly and at greater volume and scale than they did, right? So part of it becomes a numbers game, right? I mean, there's attack approaches that just dependent on, we're just going to wear you out. Eventually you're going to click on something, right?
Yeah.
So the ability to do those things in volume. So you take just kind of, bot attacks that weren't very sophisticated. You just pound on your front door for a while. Now you can make them much more effective, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So you got that combination of more sophisticated, more effective, and at higher volume and scale.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I think that's a threat. I think the specter of people being able to craft even more effective malicious attacks and malicious software, and to continue to tweak it. I mean, everyone's got some weak spots.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody does, and given enough resources, right, people will find a way in if they choose to continue to try long enough. The AI and other tools just make it that much more make it possible, even more possible for them to do just that. So that concerns me. And then just you take the whole deepfake thing and think about it, right? They've got you and I here, right? There's enough audio and video and enough information about both of us out there to use that in a pretty sophisticated way. You're seeing,
and particularly the executives.
Yeah.
The executives are always out because they have to be the front people of the corporation, and so as a result, they're the most targeted and coincidentally the most susceptible to deep fakes. Not necessarily in terms of being the victim, but becoming the one who has been deep faked.
Yeah, and there's always this element among people and that's kind of the core of the people risk side of things, right? That we generally want to cooperate with the people who we know and trust in our organization, horizontally or vertically, right?
Yeah.
And it's very hard to put aside that and say, I need to ask a question or two, right? Yeah. Because it creates the standard thing, creates a sense of urgency. You need to do this, and I'm reaching out to you because you're my guy on this and you're going to help me with this. So you put all of that together so it's more sophisticated, it's at a higher scale and volume, can be very targeted, and it takes everything we're used to dealing with and speeds it up and makes it more sophisticated and makes it more compelling. And I think that's just the recipe for just even more risk than we've traditionally seen.
I agree. I think it also even increases the skills of that script kiddie we didn't have to worry about
Sure.
before, but
That's a
now
great
all of a
point.
sudden they can literally type into their terminal, "How do I do this?"
Yeah.
And they can have that large language model built
Yeah.
into it
That's
because
great. Good
I've
point.
done this,
Yeah.
and it'll say, "This is how you do this."
Yeah.
And
And you can go rent the things that you don't want to develop for yourself from people that do it for a business, right?
yeah,
Um, which is crazy. You tell people that, there's people that'll do ransomware as a service, that'll do, bot attacks,
yeah,
denial of service as a service. And they're like, what?
phishing as a service, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, interestingly enough, in most of these like large scale breaches, at least that I've been involved in, one of the commonalities I see is that the people that are ransoming you are not the ones breaching your perimeter.
Yeah.
The person that breaches your perimeter is some rando, right? They get on the dark web, they sell that shell, but typically for like $500, right? They go buy this access into your company for $500, and then they very quickly turn it into
Yeah.
millions of dollars.
Well, and the speed at which people exploit stuff. I mean, there was one very well-known threat actor group that had a pretty big impact on some organizations in Las Vegas, and the length of time, I'm told, between when they get themselves inside your network and they start executing and
Uh-oh. Well, we seem to have lost him. Here, let's listen to more of you want to listen to him? Okay, wait, he's back. He's back. There we are.
okay, we went away for a moment. You talk about threat actors, and then your screen goes blank. You start worrying you've offended somebody. But
If they were any good, they'd be on the defensive side anyway. Talk about painting a target on my back.
yeah, there you go.
uh, so I actually think that because the level of sophistication of phishing and just the pure volume is skyrocketing. So last year was almost 4 billion. This year probably is 4 billion a day. 4 billion phishing emails a day.
It's mind-boggling.
And it is. And that's the reason I think that's a number rather that our users need to know.
Yeah.
Because when they understand that 4 billion messages or phishing messages are sent every day, they also understand that they're going to get hit every other day if they can do basic math, right?
Yeah.
And so I just point that out because I think people don't want to be that paranoid person. And so they think they're just being paranoid online. But to me, I really think that it's good to be, it's a healthy paranoia online. I mean, they truly are trying to get you. I mean, and if you, to me, you see that particularly with parents of young children when they let them online. They're really careful what they give them access to. Why? Because they know they're out to get them.
Yeah.
Doesn't change when you get older.
Yeah. I think that's a great perspective. I think about it that there's a big range between I click on everything and I click on nothing. And people tend to get to the extremes. You got to look, there's a basic set of things you just need to think about and be aware.
Yeah.
Right. If you've never seen it before, you don't know where it's coming from. Right. Take a moment to validate, is this real? Is this coming from who it said? Am I expecting this? That's not a hard thing to do. And it's okay. It doesn't make you paranoid, it just makes you prudent. Yeah. Right. And then the basic things to remind people, look, just stop and think about your job for a minute. Do you ever pay invoices? Ever? Do you have a role where you approve invoices? Ever? Then why would you open something that says it's an invoice?
Yep.
Right. But I think it's reminding people that, you don't get so locked up that you delete everything. You report everything as a phish. And don't just randomly click on stuff assuming that somehow will protect you. Right.
They actually did a study where they interviewed workers who had clicked on a phish. And they found out that there is this group of people that just thinks that their work computers are so secure that they couldn't possibly get hacked. And so what will happen is that if they get like a suspicious email, let's say that email from the proverbian prince, to their inbox, they'll forward it to their work address and open it there because we can't get hacked. We're unhackable.
Yeah.
But I find that interesting because I feel like it just goes to show we've got to do a better job at communicating if people think that, because it's everyone in IT. You don't even have to be an infosec. You just have to be in IT to know, oh, anything can be hacked, right?
Absolutely.
So I don't know. I guess I'm randomly talking about or thinking out loud about that, but it makes me think that maybe we need to really embrace behavioral science and
Yes.
psychology more in what we do.
Yeah.
So a question I like to ask every single guest is this: carrot or stick? I know it's not so simple, but let's say there's a gun to your head. You have to pick one tool to use for the rest of your life. You can't use the other one.
Yeah. I think it needs to be carrot, because if I run around with a stick and all I have is a stick, then you end up acting out of fear. And I'm missing on the other half of my job, right? Part of the job is protecting the organization. Part is enabling the organization,
Yeah.
right, to do business. And if all I do is run out hitting people with a stick, I think you lose that part, because then people are afraid to do anything, as opposed to a carrot is, understand why this is important. Understand why this is important to you personally and to you in the workplace.
Yeah.
Right? And let us help you understand how to sort out good from bad, malicious from benign, right? And do it in a way that you can absorb it, you can understand it, and then give you a little bit of safety net that, okay, we're going to give you some things to practice, not because we keep score. I tell people I don't get paid by the failed phishing exercise, right? We don't have bonuses. It's not a bounty for us, right? What we really want to do is just help enable people to do their jobs. And their job is to be part of the security culture and not do the wrong things.
Yeah.
But then to serve customers and bring in revenue and support their teammates. So I think a carrot's just a better way to get there.
I agree.
Though I do think at some point you need to have a really big carrot that if you hit someone over the head with, they'll know it. I mean, if you fail 4 exercises in a row, something ought to happen to you, right?
I do agree that it's not as simple as just one or the other.
But you got to lead with something.
But we do need to be building more bridges and just being a more friendly organization, I think. My opinion, and maybe I'm just a skeptic, but I do feel like that whole you can't patch stupid mentality has really spread through into our attitudes in the industry a little bit. And it's completely innocent. It's not their fault, but because it's the first thing you learn when you get in IT. Like that's the first thing I learned. I learned PEBCAC. And then I learned the ID10 tier. And then actually when I got into cybersecurity, that's when I learned you can't patch stupid. But I mean, it's the first thing you learn in IT. And so I think it comes very naturally. It's not necessarily anyone's fault, but the more we can be conscious of it and say, okay, we want to be the friendly department that enables people. If they can't get anywhere with the IT team, come to the security because we're the enablers. I would prefer that they're, more they have that attitude over, don't go to them. They'll never do anything because, then they're not talking to us about their concerns. And so often their concerns are very valid. And we have a weakness in a business process somewhere that if we don't talk to them, we're not going to learn about.
I think you've hit it. It's about, in our external business, it's all about relationships with folks. In our internal business, it's all about relationships. And if we're the Department of Information Prevention, right? If I'm Dr. No, you're right. People will find a way to do the things they think they need to do, and they'll just go around us. Which is why I always try to have the discussion with folks, particularly in our lines of business, say, look, we understand without you generating revenue, you don't need us, right? So we are partners in all this. But tell me the problem you're trying to solve, and let's work together for a way to solve it for you that satisfies us from a security and risk perspective. And then we can both win. And there may be some times where what you want to do or how you want to do it is so bad or so risky that you really can't. And when I tell you that, you need to respect that, because you understand we're both trying to get to the same place. But the basis of that's got to be communications and relationships and people trusting you're trying to help them and trying to help the organization find the best way through it. And that's not, to your point, right? That's not always, I've been guilty of it like everybody else, right? You can't patch stupid, but we need to do better, and we need to manage. And I think that's why the whole idea of understanding and managing risk at the individual team member level, I think is so important. Right?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Understanding that individual
Yeah.
Is critical, but I think it's also, how do they learn?
Yeah. That's a great point.
What data do they have access to? What
Yeah.
privileges do they have?
Yeah.
And then there's the other, like, how susceptible are they to phishing? Do they report? Is their reporting accurate?
Yeah.
There's so many metrics that we can measure around our humans, and that just provide us more insight and help us to do a better job as companies. I really, love some of the things that you're doing over there. We are running a little bit low on time here, and I want to make time for the last segment, and that is, what advice do you have for end users, or we'll just make it your bank's customers?
Yeah.
What advice do you have to them about how to avoid falling victim to one of these scams?
Yeah. I mean, I think first and foremost is just stop and take a breath. If somebody, so many of these things depend on creating some kind of a sense of urgency, right?
Yeah.
You need to act. You need to do this, particularly the things that target customers with financial scams, right? Is just take a breath, right? And think about it, right? If is the bank going to be calling you, asking you for your account number? It's your bank. If they actually are your bank, they know this information. They don't need you to validate it, right? So just pause and think, right? Remember, just kind of common sense, basic practices. Internally, the same thing, right? Just no matter who it is that calls, pause and think about, what would we typically do? Would I normally do this? Would anyone ask me of this? And I think then you have to create the culture, particularly within the company, that you're not going to get in trouble for taking the time to ask a question to make sure of something. You're just not. And customers need to understand on the other side of it that if we take a little time and add a little friction to the process to help protect you and help protect us, we both need to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Because we're surrounded by risks that you're not thinking about. And that's why some of these processes are in place. So it's just pause, take a breath, think about how you would normally deal with this if it ever came up. And if it's never come up before, that's even more reason to stop, take a breath, ask a question, pause. Don't be in a hurry. I tell people, I'll leave it at this, let's not be in a hurry to do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Right? It's just worth taking a breath, pausing a beat.
I love it. Interestingly enough, my wife has a supplement company, and so I go to the bank to send a wire off to Madagascar to buy some raw materials. They were certain, they jumped into gear. They're like, we've been trained for this. We know you're being scammed, and they just did not believe me. I was not being scammed, by the way, but no, I think that we do have to put those protections in place, because too often people don't know. And I've fallen for a scam before. That was one of the things that really led me to cybersecurity in the first place. And I felt like an idiot, but I shouldn't have, because of all of these things. And I didn't know it at the time. But since I've learned more about the psychology of it, and what I realize is they exploit these mental shortcuts that we have, that we use to make decisions very quickly. And if we're not aware of it, it can cause us to fall victim to these things.
Yeah.
One bit of advice I like to give everybody is trust your gut.
Yeah.
Your subconscious moves at a speed that's like light speed compared to the speed of sound, when it is compared to your conscious. And I point that out because your subconscious's job, aside from just keeping you alive, is to warn you about threats, and it can warn you about cyber threats too.
Yeah.
Trust your gut. That is your body's built-in antivirus saying, hey, watch out, and just, move on to the next one.
Yep. Yep. I love that. I'm going to remember that phrase. Your body's built-in antivirus. I like that.
Awesome. Well, with that, there's another episode of Phishing for Answers with Kevin Gowen, CISO of Synovus. Thank you very much. I'm going to play the, do I have the bank one in here? Yes, I'm going to play the bank one on the way out.
Awesome.